Hello everyone, it's Trina at John's Furniture Repair, and we've got a really big chairs and table set here with tulips, and we got a lot of work to do. We're just going to do a complete refinish on everything. We're changing the color, so not a lot of repair, but a lot of stripping and sanding and staining and finishing. So let me show you a couple details about this set. So the finish itself is not that bad. There's a couple of marks. That just looks like jam, actually. That's not a big deal. But some water marks and a little bit of scratches. But in general, everything's in really good condition. Chairs as well, just normal wear, like seats scratched from buttons on jeans and stuff in your pocket, a little bit of wear around the edges. None of them seem really loose. So stay tuned for stripping a chair while it's together, which is a little difficult. But yeah, everything just has a little bit of wear, and that's not too big of a deal, but the color is the main issue. The table here is much lighter on the top. It has a couple of watermarks. That one, also a weird like placemat shaped stain kind of thing. So it just needs a clean up. Base is in pretty much perfect condition. But we're going to be changing this to a really dark color. I believe she chose brown mahogany. So let me just find it. These are Gaudi stamples that I show customers. They can pick their color. Oh, I went past it. Okay, so here it is. It's kind of like just going into, it's going to be quite a severe difference. So this is looking really dark, but it actually turns out a little bit lighter than this sample because I like to lighten up the top grain. So everything needs to be stripped down because we got to get that stain into the wood grain. That's how I do coloring in my shop. A lot of people just do like tinted lacquers, which I use tints, but I don't do my main color in that very often. So we're just going to start one chair at a time, or maybe the leaves, and get through this sea of oak. Let's get to work. After growing up in my dad's restoration shop and learning everything he knows, I'm continuing on with the business in my own shop. And after 25 years, I can truly say I love this job, and I just have to share it with you. Whether it's a priceless 300-year-old hand-carved piece of history or just an ordinary table or dresser, I pour my heart into each and every piece a customer brings me. Hi, I'm Trina, and this is John's Furniture Repair. Okay, so some of you may be like, hey, Trenna, that's not espresso stain that you put on all the chairs. And you'd be right. Because I was wrong when I said it was going espresso. I was thinking of the last job we did for her, a different dining room set. So this color is called Puritan Pine. We've used it on other projects before. And you'll be happy to know it's a little lighter because this nice oak is nice to see. And I am just giving these a very light sand because everything is in excellent condition. I'm just kind of breaking the surface so that stain grabs into the grain. Just kind of roughing it up a little. Get some of those fibers of the oak to stand up and grab some color. But it is a nice little update for the piece. It is probably only a couple shades darker than the original, but it has a lot more black in the grain than the original piece did. And some of the areas are staining a little lighter, so we'll have a little bit of tint work. As per usual, I never get away without it. It is kind of rare. Just want to get that stain out of the groove. And there you go. So that's a nice color for the oak. You can really see it. The light is not helping. Just kind of gets a little bit more black into the grain. So I've got the table upside down here, and I've stripped and sanded and stained the underside of the table. Been sitting here for a while. I'm gonna get someone to help me flip it. It's quite heavy. So I just have 2 legs and the other pedestal to do. And then we can, well, I could stain the leaves too because we've got those ready. But I'm gonna wait for help to flip that table because it's super heavy. All right, we've got this sea of oak stained and it's dried overnight. Chair's been drying for a few days and the pedestal is over there. So we are ready to put one coat on everything. This table looks really weird without a clear coat, like the stain kind of hazes over, so it looks really uneven and terrible when it's not clear coated. So I will show you the difference as I go over this whole table with lacquer. And the chairs turned out pretty even. They look really good, and so does the pedestal. So I will be tinting this a little darker. I wanted to leave some room for tint, so I didn't stain it too dark. And yeah, so let's get that booth going and spray this stuff. And I spray with catalyzed lacquer. So if you're wondering what finish I'm putting on this set, it'll be a satin catalyzed lacquer. All right, so we've got a coat of lacquer on the table, and we're going to mix a tint, and we're going to be using a little spray gun to tint the whole table. So I'm going to mix it with my solvent-based stains. You can read it right there. Solvent-based stains, which go great with my solvent-based finishes. So what I do for tints is I mix a little bit of my solvent-based stain with some lacquer. So, and it's not a science. If you want a, you do want your lacquer because that's the binder. You don't just want to spray this stain straight on, which you can. But if you stick it in a binder, then you have a better chance of that stain kind of going on a little bit smoother because it kind of melds with the finish. And also it sticks better and you can't really sand in between these coats, which I don't anyway. So I'm just going to put like probably 5 tablespoons, and then I'm going to put my solvent-based finish, which is actually using I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to use my regular Lenmar lacquer, and I just have them here in 5-gallon pails. So shake. What I like about this lacquer is it doesn't settle very easily, and it's really easy to mix up. So a lot of lacquers are not like, you really have to stir them every time, so you don't want to buy them in a 5-gallon pail. So you're kind of always mixing. Actually, ML Campbell is a little bit like that. So I'm just going to pour this straight into, and I'm going to fill this right up for that much color. And I like to mix my concentrated color, and then when I put them in my tint gun, I add my thinner, my lacquer thinner. So there you have our tint. So we're going to give this a little stir, and you can see that's a pretty concentrated color. So we'll be able to, if you wanted to do a lighter application, you just put less color in. But I can control that with my thinner too. And these Gaudi lacquers have beautiful tints, so they're really nice to make tints out of. Good, so now I'm going to get a gun, and I think I'm going to be using, actually because it's a big table, I'm going to step up to a cup gun. And this one I believe has, actually that's my lighter color gun. I might grab my DeVilbiss cup gun because it's a little bit more finer mist, and you really want to atomize your tints so you're not getting little speckles of color, you're getting a nice even tone color. So I'm going to clean this gun up because I think I had something else in here before, and then we'll pour it in here. Okay, so now I'm going to put it through a strainer just to get any particles that didn't dissolve nicely in the stain. It just helps to kind of amalgamate the two together a little bit more, even though they do very nicely together. And I am going to use about half of that to put in here. Actually, that's about good right there. And then the rest is going to be just lacquer thinner to really thin out that color. There we go. So now we're just going to give that a little mix in the cup. I really like the old DeVilbiss stuff. You might notice I have a few, my booth is actually a DeVilbiss booth. So I have a couple of guns that are DeVilbiss. Someone gave me a Kremlin gun. I think it's right here. This thing, the lid pisses me off so much. This is like a pop-on lid. If I could find a lid like that for this one, it would be better. But this thing makes me so angry that I end up tossing it. And like, this is a, you know, $500 to $1,000 gun. It's a nice gun, just don't like this system. So I'll have to get, maybe they sell different cups for it. I gotta research that. But until then, I've got this guy with this pop-on lid, and it also has an adjustment for your pressure right here. So that's nice if you wanna get a little bit finer. So let's head over to the table, give it a little 320 sand, and we'll pop this color on. Okay, some of you have asked why I use lacquer, and I use it for the same reason that the factories use it. It dries almost instantly, cures overnight, and it you know, you can put 3 or 4 coats on in a day. But the other thing is, my lacquer is catalyzed, and my really hard lacquers are post-catalyzed. So if you want to know more about those things, it's just an increasing hardness and durability with the catalyzation. And nitrocellulose lacquer is probably on the same level of protection as shellac. So, you know, and shellac is a little bit harder to work with in the spray, and it usually, you know, you can buy the flattened shellacs, but lacquer is a lot harder. The catalyzed lacquer is a lot harder than shellac. So I am just going to give this thing a very quick, catch any little, you know, dust nibs that fell into this on the first coat so we don't lock it under color. And I'm just using a 320. And this is a very loud oak table. The grain is really in your face on this one. So it'll be nice to use a tint over it, because tint really does tone down the contrast between the grain and like the deep grain and the top grain, the hard parts of the wood. And I'm going to dust it off with my hand, because if you dust it with a rag, you will get some dust off, but you won't be able to feel the actual surface. When I run my hands along the surface, I can feel every little dust nib or little particle, and my hands can kind of scrape that off like a squeegee. So I'm just gonna go over with my hands, and if there's anything that doesn't move, with a little bit of extra pressure, then we need to sand it before we go ahead with color. And this is a big table. When I have the color corrected and everything looks nice across the surface, I'm going to remove the leaves and spray them separately, because at that point I'm just making it harder for myself to do it all in one pass. Okay, so there is the color work and a coat of lacquer over it. So we got 2 coats of lacquer and 1 coat of the tint, which has lacquer in it as well. So you can see it looks a little deeper than it did before. Everything's a little bit more evened out. The contrast is down. I did add a little bit of black to this leaf and both sides, because this leaf seemed like it had a lot more black in it. It maybe was kept in the closet more, and this rest of the table was out. So it does look like it could use a little bit more, but I'm gonna pull it out of the booth, because what happens in my shop is the booth light is really cold. And once it gets out into this area and under these different lights, the color definitely shifts. So I'm gonna pull it out. Yeah, out here it looks just fine. So I might even add a little bit more warmth to this one now that I see it, which I probably need it in there too, but now that I can see it in one light, I can make a few definitions in the color. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna let this coat dry. It'll get another very light sand and then a little color shift on this one. And then we do the final coats of lacquer. All right, it's the next morning. Everything is dry. So I'm just gonna give this a good cut down with a 320. So that'll be a couple hours of sanding on everything and then the final coat. And here it is, all finished up. This was a big job. You can just see how big this table is now. Got everything refinished. The base looks really good. Everything's a little deeper tone than it was before, so it's looking really nice. We've got different grains on the leaves, so they're a little bit different looking, but I like all of the mixture of the wood. We've got a nice dull rubbed Campbell lacquer on this. The chairs turned out really great. We only had to do the refinishing. We didn't have to re-glue any of these. They were all in really good condition. And everything is looking really nice. So thanks for joining me on this big job. I know I didn't film every single thing about this job, but it's kind of repetitive. It's just one of these jobs that it's just a full refinish of a big dining room set. So thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description below this video. And once again, thank you for all your lovely comments and for watching and joining me here. Cheers.